So these are all clustered together because they're all Dragon's Half Hour. Some get better. So this little cluster of Dragon's Half Hour intros does show a fairly dramatic spike in improvement, but that's because these are over a period of quite a few years. So what we'll get here is Dragon's Half Hour showing an improvement curve. Well, theoretically an improvement curve. I think it's an improvement curve. And then we'll drop back to the older method after them because Dragon's Half Hour ended up just clumped together. Because I must admit, I'd forgotten quite how many of these specials I'd done. As I say, some specials I've missed out because they are just the basic intro that we've just seen, and then put on top of that is just transition to a new frame that's just like TV special. For some reason, I've got a feeling I did a fighting special. I did a lot of specials, in fairness. Back in the day, I did a lot of fucking specials, if you know what I mean. But one other thing to mention is it was deliberate. I will just point out, I'm not very good at any of the games I showed in this intro, but nonetheless, that was a relatively deliberate capture of my failure. That was just weird. I picked up the fact that you could go backwards, and then again, deliberate failure. And I mean, that one's a bit more obviously deliberate failure. I drove straight into the bottom of the thing. And then this would be the Halloween special, because add enough screams and your quid's in. If in doubt, add some screams and you've got Halloween. But this, I don't know if this is probably, again, I suspect this is probably Camtasia, but it's Camtasia using footage from the games I did in the Halloween special. It's very loud indeed. You won't note that, but it seems devilishly loud in my ear. I suppose maybe that was again part of the idea of this is horror. It's in your face. It's in your ears. It's But again, just to dissect it a little bit, I meant to stop on the actual frame. Just to dissect it a little bit more, I'd probably put a bit of emotion in that nowadays. Again, fractal noise, colour shifting background, just to give that a little bit of feel of motion. These, I'd probably texture them a lot more as well. Probably give them a more sort of, I'd probably look up a tutorial on making a bone texture or some such, to make them a little bit more poppy, as opposed to just that light grey. I was quite pleased with the. I must admit, I don't recall there being many, if any, of these sort of head variants that I created that I truly didn't like. So I quite like that little scar and the sort of adjusted eyes and little JD on. Because I must admit, I've used the strap there and the sort of area just above the strap. Band, I suppose. It's not really a strap per se, but it is a band, so you can kind of, theoretically at least. I don't actually own a Hornberg hat, so that's a thing to note. I should probably buy one just to be able to have one in real life, I suppose. But nonetheless, I do tend to use this area a lot as to show sort of emblems and logos and stuff to emphasise everything. But there's not a lot I can say about that intro. It was a lot of just footage and screaming. Apparently past me thought Halloween was footage and screaming. In fact, I don't think that's changed. No, we'll see the Halloween special later on, and that's pretty much footage and screaming. So, right, let's carry on. My Wayward Son. No, that's later. So once again, we begin with our sort of poor gameplay. Again, I will emphasise, I'm not good at these games, but I'm better than I'm showing there, because what I did was I went, okay, bros. Again, I'd prefer a different transition and a bit of motion in the background. And there's a lot of artifacting on that image. It might just be the fact that it's stretched to this full screen mode at the moment, but it may also be to do with the whole... Oh, you can hear this one, you can get early doors. It's jingle bells. Jingle, 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 which means this is going to be a Christmas special, I'm guessing. We'll wait and see. There we go. Do you know, I said there weren't many of the head variants I didn't like. That's probably one. That's a bit... Ooh. That red needs to be toned down a lot, I fear. A lot. It's a very, very bright red. Well, we're in Dragon's Half Hour once again. I can only assume... what comes after? Oh, this is probably... I won't spoil it, although you've probably seen this video, so you might know the order. Is it? Yes! The Batman special. Now, it's interesting, because not about... I don't know how long I've been recording this now, but this is the example. Okay, we'll pause it there. This is around about the time where I introduced Flash to my arsenal of tools. Because you'll note, again, like the Christmas special, again, it's just a transition. Oh, no, that's not the right one. It's just a transition into that end frame. So, in fact, I really shouldn't have included the Christmas special in here, but because it's pretty much the same as the normal one. But I suppose it does say Christmas special. And it's got a slightly different font, hasn't it? It's got that snow-capped font, which is quite nice. Not important. But about however long ago this started, which is a long time ago, I was recently discussing this Batman one. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll watch it,
BatDragon 56,
and then I'll try and discuss and see any interesting points I can think about it. I'll be talking as well. Dun, dun.
To the Batman.
Of course, this is Batman Begins music, I believe, which is just epic music. Different variations of the logo. And then that's a nice, simple wibble technique on chains. Wibble technique. Is that an official technique? No, it's not. This! So, yeah, I wanted this commentary to be a bit sort of raw and authentic, like I'd never seen them before, but then I pieced the video together and inevitably ended up watching it to balance the audio and to check whether I wanted to transition frames, etc, etc, etc. Nonetheless, I've watched this video several times, so it's not any surprise, but this sequence is too long, isn't it? It's too long. I think that's one of the... I like that.
Batman.
I'm Batman. Fuck you. I don't even have to move my arm. I mean, okay. So a lot of this ends up being just what can I accomplish with the tools at my disposal, and usually it's not a lot, because let's just watch that again. The voice work is fucking top notch, isn't it? What the hell are you? I'm Batman. It just spins randomly. I can't deny it, I must admit.
Batman.
I'm quite pleased. Hang on, let's try and... I need to pause it and then... Right, there we go, right. I'm quite pleased at the fact that I went to the effort of... I don't know what would have been simpler to do. It's going to be something... I'm reckoning what I did was I possibly chopped the thumb? I may have chopped his thumb up and put it on top of the Batarang. And I think I even actually gave that Batarang a little bit of depth there. I skewed it in such a fashion that it applied a little bit of depth to it. But I've got to say, okay, I know I said I didn't like the Christmas one, but this one I have always loved, because the little bat, I suppose they're ears, aren't they? They're ear motifs. But the little bat extra bits worked really fucking well, I think, on that hat. And then the mask detailing, I think, worked beautifully as well. And just that general, and again, with the sort of using the band there as a marker. Did I darken the colour of the hat? Let's just drop back. Yes, I did. I darkened... I mean, it's... Oh, hang on, we've gone too far. There we go. Oh, actually, I didn't need to go all the way back, but yes. So when we get to BatDragon, as I usually call him, you can see I've actually slightly inverted the colouring scheme to make the actual hat section a lot darker, which I'm quite pleased at. But I'm also quite pleased the fact that I didn't just put the Batarang over his hand. I did make the effort to make it look at least a little bit like it's in his hand. I grant you, it then immediately just flies. Plus, there you go. I think you might be able to see. Where we gone? I'm trying to get... There we go. Okay, that'll do. I don't know why that looks... Oh, I bet because he's actually holding the original Batarang. So I've ended up having to cut out the original Batarang, then cut out his thumb on top, put it on top of my Batarang, in order to then have my Batarang spin away. But, yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know how I'd improve that without making an actual 3D model of Batman. And fun fact, if you ever think, I wonder if we'll ever play Batman games, I might do, if I ever make a 3D model of BatDragon. Because at that point, I'll definitely be playing the Batman games. But until then, the intro that is in my brain, it's in my brain, but I can't get it on the computer, because the techniques that are used in my brain are too advanced for my hands to get into the computer. So I need to do a lot more 3D modelling and a lot more character rigging and animating. And then maybe at that point, I'll be ready to get what is in my brain into the computer, into your screens. Because at that point, I will be able to make the intro I want to make for Batman. So this was kind of okay because it was just a one-off special, which I actually put a lot of effort in. We'll discuss a bit more as to the amount of effort. But yeah, it's mildly amusing that it just sort of pops out of his hand. But again, it's kind of, I suppose that maybe I could have. Nowadays, I must admit, there's plausibility, because I'm looking into a technique that has bugged me for years, and that's that sort of, okay, that looks to be just a paint. It's the style, if you've been watching Mortal Kombat, the style they use at the end of the towers is the style I'm referring to. It's that sort of, okay, that looks to have just been a painted picture. Someone's just made a picture, and then somehow they've added the motion to that picture. It's the same idea if you've ever watched the Smite, I think it's the Smite reveals, God reveals. They sometimes use it there, and sometimes I think League of Legends uses it as well. But it's essentially, it clearly looks like it's supposed to have started out life as a flat image, and then somehow it's been manipulated so that it's actually motioning. And that's the technique I wouldn't mind looking into, and I have found some tutorials on it. I just haven't gotten around to looking too in depth. Apparently it uses something to do with the liquefy tool. And so nowadays, maybe, just maybe, if I'd taken that basic image of Batman, which again is stomping heavily on copyright, I'm sure, but sometimes needs must, I suppose. But then again, I should probably draw my own Batman, but I'm terrible at that sort of art. Not too bad at making like copies of things, like that BatDragon. It's really quite nice, but that BatDragon fundamentally is you put a point there, you put a point there, and then you stretch a curve. Very easy to do vector graphics in CorelDRAW. I absolutely adore it. I will discuss that again. Here, you put a point there, you put a point there, you grab the middle of that line and you go up, and that forms a curve. And you can see it all over this area. You point there, point there. Arguably, you could put a point in the middle, but fundamentally, as long as you've got a point there, you can drag that curve out easily enough. And that's how all of these, any image like this you see, especially ones with the flatter colours, they're all CorelDRAW vector graphic manipulations. So again, with the beard, I suspect it's probably a point there, point there, point there. You drag that line to form a curve there, you drag that line to form a curve there. It's slightly different if you've ever used Illustrator or Photoshop or something, because Illustrator and Photoshop, what they tend to do is what you have to do is you have to put a point there, then you have to put a point there and drag out to get the curve you're after, and then you put a point there. I've never been overly keen on that method. I prefer the CorelDRAW method of point, point, drag line, but both equate to roughly the same thing. That's not hugely important. What the fuck were you saying prior to that conversation? I have no idea. Do you have any idea? I have no idea. Liquefying. I think there's something to do with liquefying in After Effects. So what you could do, I think, potentially, is you'd possibly chop round the image, maybe, and find a way to liquefy I have no idea. But nonetheless, if I was more aware of these techniques back then, what I might have been able to do is actually have that arm at least a little bit of motion, because I don't think you can do like huge sweeping motions, because I suspect that gets a bit too complex perhaps, but you could at least possibly have had that arm move a little bit. And it does bug me slightly that the arm doesn't move at all. And as I say, this fight section I think was, do you know what? I'll tell you what, we'll do this as well. That tumbler, it's fucking awesome, isn't it? That's it. I'll stop it there. But yeah, I absolutely love the fact that, because I mean, this again, it's just CorelDRAW, points, lines, curves, manipulations. I mean, I wouldn't have it nowadays, but some of the times what I tend to do is start off with just an approximation. Now, I grant you, this one is actually all pretty much just straight lines, but like that, and that's a circle. That's too spherical to make for a decent idea. I suppose that the best example I can show you is that BatDragon again. Let me get that. No, that'll do. Because what the first sweep of any vector graphic for me is to just get where I want the key points to be. So what you'd have is just a straight line between those 2 points, a straight line between those 2 points, a straight line between those 2 points. And it's amazing how it still looks kind of like a BatDragon, even without the curves. But you then go round and do a sweep of, okay, let's put all the curves in. But what I was saying is this bit, I think nowadays I would definitely have shortened it. But I fear I do still slightly have in my brain that little bit that I understand from past me. I wanted to use a lot more of the theme song than I probably should have. So you can see there, that's kind of like basically the beginning of the theme song, and it runs through the entire thing. What I think I should have done was, I think I timed the Pow Kapow with the music's Kapow Kapow from the original 60s series. But I should have used more in the fight, or just chopped that fight down substantially, I think. Because you could have then gotten to this bit a lot easier and a lot quicker. Pow! Whack! But yeah, fundamentally, it's quite a fun little intro, just not as technically sound as I would have liked, and the absolutely sort of stood still arms is not wondrous, and as I say, I think it drags a bit. I've gotten a little bit better, because you'll note the intro to this whole video, I capped myself at about 30 seconds, and same with Mortal Kombat, I think I put a cap on it. I allowed a little bit of wiggle room for, because you never know precisely what motion's going to look right until you've put that motion in motion. At that point, you can tell that it looks right or wrong. So there's a bit of wiggle room, but it's one of those ones where you do have to give a little bit of wiggle room, but I do need to keep them shorter and punchier, I think. There is space for lengthy ones, and we'll go into some of the others are ridiculously long, and some of them in here aren't 100% intros. For example, what we're about to be viewing. This isn't strictly speaking an intro, but it went with the Batman special, so I thought I'd include it. Okay. Years and years and years ago, a wave went around YouTube that was the interactive video. And essentially what that meant was you could put a little window sort of thing. Nowadays they just use cards and the end frames, but back then you could put in a little tiny text window, because I did go through a lot of my LPs back then and put in little tiny annotations in the bottom corners. You can't really use them anymore, because A, I don't know if they exist, and B, the play bar is now sort of overlaying the video, whereas before it was separate. It was beneath the video, I think. So these two little annotations were previous part and next part, and you could navigate the videos like that. It's improved over the years, I've got to say. But using these little annotations, the fact that you could link them to other videos, there was a wave of videos, and one key one, if you look up Corridor Digital Nightmare, that is one of the key ones I absolutely adore. What I would recommend is you pay the gold and get to that video, because it's hilarious. The guy's face and the guy's sentence are so gloriously put together that it's absolute joy to watch. But what they did was they had a scene, then they had a guard catch him, and then you had two options: pay the gold or kill the guard. And depending on what you did, you went to a different video reveal. And this is... because a lot of channels were doing it, I, of course, jumped on the bandwagon. And so what I did was I planned this Batman special. And so on key videos, I say key videos, I think I just timed it. I think there was a parts A through J. So I timed it so that the ends of some of these videos featured these little snippets here. And we'll play through, because this is all flash. And this is very pleasing to me, because it's quite nice. It's still quite nice today.